good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. I'm Kyler Cheatham. I'm joined by Eric Kimberling and Greg Benton here at Third Stage Consulting Group. We are doing a special live stream this morning to celebrate Third Stage's placement in the top third of Inc. magazine's 5,000 fastest growing companies in the U.S. So very exciting for Third Stage to be honored with this. And so I thought we might talk to our executive team and understand kind of what this means for the business, and then also have some Q&A from our audience. We also are celebrating Eric's birthday this week. So he won Inc. 5000 and it's his birthday, so just a huge week. So be sure to wish him happy birthday in the chat. But speaking of the chats, just to get some logistics out of the way, we can see the chat from any platform that you're joining on today. So I encourage you to put your questions, to put your comments, and engage with our community in the chat. And just to test that, we'd love to hear where everyone is joining us from today. We have a global audience, which we're extremely grateful for. So go ahead and put where you're joining us from today, and we will jump in. So Inc. 5000, let's start with you, Eric. This is a list that Third Stage is only 4 years old. So you have to prove a certain amount of revenue growth over that time frame, which for us was a bit challenging just because we are so young as a company. So can you kind of take us through why you started Third Stage and the growth that you've experienced since then within the company and just establishing the executive team?
Sure. Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining today on the live stream. But yeah, it is a great honor to be on the list, and it's a good sort of measure of how you compare to other high growth companies and whatnot. But really, the reason we started the company was to provide that independent, technology agnostic advisory service for clients and in ways to help them through their digital transformations. And it's funny because when you start a company, sometimes you have high aspirations, but you also just want to survive too at the same time. So it's interesting to look back and think it kind of what we were thinking 4.5 years ago, and just hoping to get by and hoping to kind of build some sort of a company, no matter how small or how big. And so to see it really take off and grow like this has been really rewarding, and it's been fun to add team members like Greg and you and others. But it's also been fun to just work with all the clients we've been able to, and so it's a fun journey so far for sure.
Absolutely. And Greg, going to you, you are the newest member of the executive team, and with your wealth of experience within the industry, it was a big move for you to come to a younger company and really manage and pioneer our client community and strategic partnerships. Can you kind of take us through what you saw as far as a value in joining the Third Stage executive team?
No, absolutely. I'm really honored to join the Third Stage team, and I think that bringing a wealth of experience and depth of knowledge across many industries that Eric has been really great about kind of evangelizing in the community is something that has been my direction as well, with regard to digital transformations and enterprise software all the way along. And so joining a team like Third Stage and leading the relationships with the software vendors, with the technology providers and our partnerships there, as well as the systems integrators in the marketplace, is really kind of a dream come true, to tell you the truth. And then the recognition in the Inc. 5000 is definite proof that moving in this direction, especially as an independent advisory in the ERP and digital enterprise space, is exactly the right direction that our clients want to go. So very happy to be here, and I think it's a great week to celebrate both Eric's birthday and the Inc. 5000 placement.
It is on a Friday in the US here, especially. But you heard it from Greg. We make dreams come true here at Third Stage. So that's our brand message. We'll own that. But so when we talk about the independent space, Eric, how did you see a need in the marketplace for that? And why is it so rare to have an independent and technology agnostic consultancy?
Yeah, well, it was actually an idea that I had really early in my career. I remember feeling like the companies I was at really early in my career were biased and were acting in their own self interest, which was to refer and to recommend and implement certain types of products versus the technologies and solutions that were necessarily best for a client. So it was an idea I had a long time ago, but I figured someone else would start a company along the way, or maybe I would someday when I had more experience. And then that day came where I felt like, okay, I feel like I have enough experience, so let's start a company that does that independent, that takes that independent and technology agnostic angle. I think the reason though it's so hard, and the reason that more companies aren't independent, is because it's a lot easier to not be independent, especially when you're first starting out. So in other words, when you start out, you could be independent, but you're sort of on your own. So good news is you're independent, you're client first, you can focus on what the client's needs are. The bad news is you don't necessarily have the support of a big marketing machine or marketing engine and business development machine from, say, a SAP or a Microsoft or an Oracle or someone like that. So it's certainly a lot easier just to hitch on to a big software vendor and drink the Kool-Aid and say, we're going to become a shop that focuses on technology A, whatever the technology is, and knowing that you've got the big company behind you, the lead generation, all that stuff. So it's too tempting, I think, for most consultants to even want to be independent. Even if they like the idea of being independent, it's just too tempting to hitch onto a big software company and or to make revenue off software sales. If you can make money by referring certain products and you get a pretty decent cut of that recurring revenue, that's pretty appealing. And so I think the temptation of money, to be honest, just to put it simply, it's money and wanting to make money faster that leads so many organizations down the path of not being independent.
Absolutely. Excuse me. So if we talk about that need for independence, Greg, when you work with our clients, what are some of the issues that come up when they work with a consultant or work with just a vendor or system integrator and don't have that full independent lens or advisory? What are some things that you've seen happen that third stage might have to come in and triage or help to fix?
Great point, or great question. And I think Eric answered part of that in terms of the independence and really not being obligatory to any single systems solution and platform, but being able to find what the client's true need is and then create a level playing field to allow for evaluation of several different systems and potentially several different systems integrators. So you see the entire ecosystem surrounding core ERP, which is traditionally finance, supply chain, human resources, human capital, and the payroll piece of that. Surrounding that are other ancillary applications like document management, the asset management, manufacturing execution systems, on and on and on, that surround that core ERP system, making up digital operations. So if you have a huge practice, you've got a whole busload of people that have been educated and trained in one particular software or system discipline, bringing that to bear for the client's best interest is often clouded in terms of what the entire strategy and the overall topology of the solution looks like. And that's where we're able to bring our independence to bear and find the right solution for our client, not the right solution for any single technology solution or software vendor.
Absolutely. That's well said, and definitely something that we hold true in our core values is adding that business advisory, that project management for our clients, their goals and objectives, their strategies that are going to maximize the value of their technology, not any other vendor's agenda. although we do work closely with vendors. So what's that relationship like to kind of be that frenemy character, Eric, in the marketplace, where you do give a lot of those unbiased opinions, which might not always land well. And we're going to do like a mean tweets. If you've seen Jimmy Fallon here in the United States, mean tweets, we're going to do some mean comments that Eric has got in one of our upcoming videos. But what's that like to kind of be in that space?
Well, it's I don't know. It's I think we've done a better job in recent years of sort of finding that right balance, between being, because on one hand we're disruptive. If you think about it in the industry, which is weird, just because we're independent and we're not aligned with a software vendor, that alone makes us disruptive, which to me is kind of strange, and it's pretty telling that alone makes you disruptive. And the reason being is because we're not coming in with a carefully crafted vendor approved message that we're delivering to the market, which is what most consultants do. And they work side by side with software vendors to craft that, message that helps sell their software. And it's not just consultancies, by the way, it's also all the industry analysts. And there's a whole ecosystem built for each of these big platforms that's really focused on getting third parties on board with their message and sort of getting them all rowing in the same direction from a marketing and selling message perspective. So then we come in as independent. We can't be bought. We're not just going to focus on one solution. We're not going to just focus on the drinking the Kool-Aid and talking about all the great things in the marketplace. We're also going to talk about the risks, and that's what organizations ultimately need to hear. It may not be the funnest thing to talk about, the downside risk of doing a digital transformation or implementing any sort of technology, and it may not be, there's so, I guess, long story short, there's so much of what we do and what we say in our messaging and our thought leadership that isn't what the software vendors would approve or say. And so, to your point, once they realize, when we first started, I think there was more of a perception of, well, these guys are, can we buy these guys? We get inquiries all the time, or we used to more often get inquiries of, hey, maybe we can just get them to become a reseller of our software, and then that'll get them in line with what we want them to say. And then they realize we can't be bought. So then I think what happens is, as we've grown and we've become so influential in the marketplace, vendors sort of realize, well, we need to play nice in the sandbox, and we need to kind of figure out a way, maybe an alternate way to engage with these guys. So that's how we've done it. Is we've been, and Greg's helped us a lot in this space in the last 6 months or so, which is really, not being too arm's length distance from the vendors. Certainly understanding their product, understanding what they're doing longer term, and collaborating and being frenemies where appropriate, but not going so far as to have any sort of economic incentive to recommend one product or one technology, or to focus on any one technology over another.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Greg, I know you want to jump in here, because you manage a lot of the strategic partnership, but I want you to kind of teach our audience and educate our audience about our vendor relationships and why they're important, and how you've helped us kind of grow into that, less of a frenemy, more of a strategic partner.
I love the term frenemy, except that, that's a description that I wouldn't necessarily use. I think that it's critically important that we understand the roadmap, that we understand, connecting to the software vendors, to the platform providers, in a way that we can then convey to our clients what is the best solution specifically for them, for their processes, for their people, what is going to work best for our clients, and really having that connection to the software vendors in really an advisory role that allows us to have that close association, yet independent nature in the terms of our recommendations that ultimately come down through strategy and decision with our clients. And actually, they are starting to really understand that creating that level playing field allows them to bring, their A game to any evaluation, to really helping the client understand why they might be the best solution for them. And with our knowledge of those vendors and being able to access their executive teams, access the people that we need on the development and the delivery side, we're able to bring the best solution for our clients to bear.
Absolutely. It's so important. So well said. Eric's over here waving bye to the vendors. He's like, goodbye, get out. No.
Oh, you can see that? I
It's
didn't know if I was.
yeah. Right. No, but so important. Greg's messages. Eric's actually waving bye to his kids going to school. And Greg, you're actually bringing your youngest son up to college today. So big
Yeah, that
day
was
for.
it's an emotional week.
It is. That's a great way to put it. But moving back to our audience, we do have a lot of our global audience on here today. We've got some from Phoenix. We've got some from Egypt, from Illinois here in the States, from India. And then we have a lot of congratulations and happy birthday messages here for Eric and team. So thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions, we're going to kind of move into what it's like to be a really high growth company, specifically from a technology standpoint, because what our unique place in the marketplace is we're not only on this list as an honoree, but we work in this space with a lot of our high growth clients, because the main thing to scale that growth is going to be a strong foundation in technology, process, and people, that side. So I want to kind of move into that line of conversation, see if we can scale some of what we've seen from our clients and share some case studies in that way. If you do have questions, though, as a reminder, wherever you're joining from, go ahead and pop those in the chat. We can see them. We'll bring them up here, and Eric and Greg will help us address and learn from them. So with that, Eric, I know a lot of our clients, especially post-COVID-19 pandemic, or being involved in that, some rocketed into growth. We talked a lot with Bryce last week on our live stream about the impact of supply chain and kind of the interesting creative ways that businesses had to survive and thrive in that pandemic area. But specifically, when we look at these younger companies in a really high growth phase, what are some recommendations that you have from the people process technology side to remain sustainable?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think a couple things that come to mind. One is to recognize that what got you to where you are today is probably not going to be the same thing that gets you to the future, and so really carving out or crafting that vision for what you want to be and look like operationally, organizationally, and also from a technology perspective. Though that people process technology future state is really important, and it's especially important in faster, higher growth companies, because it's more of a moving target, right? Because you're growing, you're changing, and it's constantly evolving. And so kind of casting your mind forward to where you're not getting behind before you ever finish a transformation is really important. Because if you think about where you are today, and if you just automate everything you're doing today, by the time you get done automating what you do today, things will have changed and you need something different, and you've already sort of outgrown that technology potentially. So really looking to kind of where we headed, what kind of markets are we planning to enter, how are our customer needs changing, how can we provide better tools for our employees as we grow, and really thinking further ahead and further forward. That is going to go a long way. And then the other thing too is you just want to be careful when you're in high growth mode, and assuming that like most organizations that are growing fast, that consumes cash and it takes money to grow, and you need cash flow to sustain that growth. The last thing you need is a money pit of a digital transformation to suck that money out of your growth. And so really managing your transformation in a very deliberate and focused way, so that you're able to have the right technology. You're not overdoing it. You're not biting off more than you can chew. You're not overspending. You're keeping the guardrails in place for the transformation. That's important for any organization, but especially for a high growth organization where cash is king and where you just can't afford to have big budgetary overruns and that sort of risk in that growth scenario.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great recommendation on kind of that balance, right? Of being high growth, wanting to meet demand, wanting to provide a great employee and customer experience, while wanting to build out your internal competencies as well. So, Greg, what are some things that you have as far as conversation points when you talk to one of our potential partners or clients in a very high growth phase?
Every conversation that we're currently having is really focused on how do I continue to keep my operations moving forward as I look at a digital transformation for the organization. And there's much more consideration going toward, I can go to a unified system, a unified ERP system that has a breadth of options that can deploy a single solution going forward for me, or I can look at a hybrid or even a best of breed solution, depending upon what my business can sustain going forward and how much change my organization will accept. So the way that a lot of these systems have been developed over the last 5 to 10 years is really just kind of evolving in different silos in terms of the functionality, in terms of the operations support that they provide to the organization, to the people, to the technology side of it, and bringing those together now in a new solution going forward. This digital transformation is very often an exercise in pulling forward all of the different strategies and technologies that are available to them, and actually having those systems interoperate. So new platforms like Palantir that's out there in the marketplace that is actually able to pull different technology platforms and solutions together in a consolidated manner from an interoperability standpoint are an exciting new development in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I definitely want to get to trends. But I want to focus on another point that you made, Greg, that I think is a really important one. And I'm interested in your feedback on it, Eric. The Inc. 5000 list is full of very impressive entrepreneurs that have kind of a more entrepreneurial spirited company that might have run a very strong sprint, right? But to run the mile or the marathon, it takes some shifting, and specifically that change that Greg mentioned, which can be very hard for kind of a cowboy culture to sustain and grow. What are some recommendations if you are in kind of that situation or experience any type of change or culture shift when it comes to new technology scaling for growth?
Well, I think the first is to, recognize the importance of culture. I mean, and recognize that, you need to have good processes, you need to have good systems, you need to have a good strategy, and obviously a good offering to the market. Those are all really important. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, in my previous company, forgot about, they forget about the cultural piece of it. So I think recognizing that, you want to kind of have a decent understanding of what kind of culture it is you're trying to create as an organization, which is hard to do as an entrepreneur, because when you start, a lot of times it's just you or you and a couple other people. And then you start to add people to that, and you can, those are the really early formative stages of defining what your culture is. Those first few hires you make will have an inordinate or a outsized impact on your culture longer term than you might think, just because that's sort of setting you on a trajectory. Once you're on that trajectory, though, obviously you need to pivot and sort of recognize, like, is this culture going the way we want? And if not, there's warts that come up during the cultural evolution. You need to make sure you're pivoting and being more deliberate about how you as a leader impact that culture, and also how you bring on people that reinforce or help create the culture that you're trying to create. And so it's a really intangible thing. It's hard to measure. It's hard to see and touch and feel. But it's something that's really important to ensure that you can use that to fuel the growth. And one thing I've seen with Third Stage is as we've grown from 0 people or just myself, my wife, and a couple other people, when we started in April 2018, we've grown from that to, over 50 people now worldwide. You add on all these people, and you have to make sure that you're continuing to build that culture, and you're not just going out and hiring bodies. You have to hire people that aren't just smart or aren't just qualified on paper, but also reflect who it is you're trying to be as an organization. So I think that culture is really powerful, and we're seeing, I think that's honestly why we've grown so much, or a big part of why we've grown so much is because of that culture we've created.
Absolutely. I mean, and culture specifically has the power to fail a digital transformation or cause transformation failure. Greg, can you kind of elaborate on how important it is to not only understand your culture as an executive, but also assess it in that readiness to understand what is your appetite for change in the organization to ensure you're optimizing your project for success?
Sure. And, from the very beginning, executive alignment and really understanding where you want to go, clearly understanding the end point of your journey is is something that a lot of people, a lot of organizations really just kind of pass by with a cursory attempt to say, yes, everyone's agreeable to the change and we're moving forward. It really does take a kind of an understanding of what your organization culture is all about, how you're going to get people to adopt change and adopt the new system and move forward under the same banner, under the same umbrella. And that starts with the executive level, but it also translates down into, all areas of the organization. Everyone has to agree to move forward in the same way. If there's a kind of a dichotomy in the understanding of different areas of the organization, be it the manufacturing floor or the executive, front office, about what you're trying to accomplish when you're ultimately completely live and stable and operating as a digitally transformed business, then you're not going to have a smooth journey along the way. And that's what it means to bring the culture together from the very beginning. We often talk about a phase zero at the very beginning to really prepare the organization both technically and functionally to follow that cultural change path in order to be successful in the entire deployment of the digital transformation and enterprise operations. So
Absolutely. And that phase zero, if you've never heard of that before, I definitely recommend going to check out our YouTube channel, Eric's YouTube channel, to hear Greg talk about that, because I think that that is absolutely the most important step, is to just ensure that you are set up for success. Because if there's cracks in the foundation, you can't fix that after the house is built, right? You have to tear the house down and redo the foundation, which can be very expensive. And cause a lot of business disruption, especially for these specific, really high growth businesses. So definitely recommend that. Also, I just want to point out that third stage, we do that. We are that insurance package. So if you are thinking about going through a digital transformation, highly recommend you just reach out to us. Via email, via anything that you'd like to connect with us, and we can tell you, in that project audit, are you ready to go? Is this going to be successful? And point out any pitfalls. One thing I do want to share real quick, we had some questions about how can you join the third stage consulting team. We're always looking for new talent within our organization. You can head to our website, or you can email work@thirdstage-consulting.com, either one, and reach out and talk to us. So this is a really good question that I think a lot of entrepreneurs also feel, Eric. So I'm going to bring it up from our LinkedIn audience. When you're a startup, the first few hires have that inordinate impact on your culture, so you need them carefully. So true. And this person is feeling the impact of the early hires in my company, even those who are no longer with it. So that really seems like a huge decision. So when you are bringing in, partners on the executive team like Eric, and we have, or like Eric, you're Eric, like Greg, and some of our other, we have an excellent COO here that does a lot of our behind the scenes, Craig Andre, and a lot of other big directors that you've hired. How do you ensure in the hiring phase, when you are scaling for growth, that you are picking the right resource?
That's a great question, and it's it's something we fumbled around. We fumbled on a few hiring decisions early on. Again, not because they're bad people or because they weren't qualified, but just because it didn't reflect the culture we were trying to become. And one thing I'll point out too is that the culture you are when you first start out, again, when it's just a couple people or a
Mhm.
small handful of people, and the skills you need, the type of person you need when you're smaller, looks a lot different than when you're bigger. And one thing that we found in the last, I'd say in the last year at third stage, is we feel ourselves sort of moving out of our awkward teenage years as a which I have two teenage boys, so I know that I'm knee deep in the awkward teenage years right now. But you're moving out of the awkward teenage years and sort of becoming an adult. That's how it feels at third stage right now. And so the people that worked out well, that we hired, that were good cultural fits and fit who we were early on, some of those people are no longer with us, largely because it didn't fit the skills and the culture we needed to
Mhm.
become to grow up, for lack of a better word. So it's I guess it's not a static thing.
Yeah.
It is something that has to evolve. But at the end of the day, even more fundamental than that, though, is you have to. I always use the litmus test of when we hire people. I always think about a scenario. Being a consultant, we travel a lot, and I always think of scenarios where you get stuck in an airport for like 2 or 3 hours because your flight's delayed, and you want to, you're traveling with someone, you want to go have a beer, or go have lunch, or whatever. I always ask myself, could I see myself having a good time just hanging out with this person and being stuck in an airport bar for 2 hours while a flight's delayed? I always use that as sort of a litmus test. Not to say that it has to be, someone I'm going to be best friends with, in personal life, but you have to, for me, it has to be someone that I just want to be around, like someone that, reflects who I am. And as a leader, you kind of have to put your fingerprint on the company and say, this is who I am as a person. Not that I'm perfect, but this is who I am as a person. I need people around me that sort of reflect my values and who I am and all that sort of thing. So that's a super basic litmus test, but it's something that I use still to this day. I was just at the end of the day want to hire people that you like working with and you think your team is going to like working with.
Mhm.
And ultimately for us, even more important is our clients are going to like working with them. So I'd say those two things. It should be focused on what's important to you, and you should also recognize that those needs are going to change as you grow. You're going to have different needs and different cultural impacts as you get bigger.
Absolutely. And pivoting to you, Greg, you really oversee our client facing brand here. So how do you ensure that you have a culture match from the internal resource to the client? Because that's really what we do here at third stage, is making sure that this person is going to be a trusted, or this team trusted business advisor. And that's a big role to fill. So how do you manage to that?
Kyler, that's a huge role, and I kind of wanted to jump in when Eric was talking about his litmus test in the airport, because I think we do the same thing with our clients
Yeah.
in multiple conversations every week. The first time that we sit down with them, it has to be a partnership that works both ways, right? So we have to understand that culturally we're going to have a fit. So we take our mission driven and professional people and put them together with the client and make sure that this is going to work from the very beginning. We talked a little bit about cultural fit in terms of even the technology providers, the systems
Mhm.
integrators, the software vendors, right? So finding that cultural fit along with our people and building that trust relationship is critically important. And maybe there's a litmus test that says, all right, if we get in a room together and we have a successful, technology deployment, how are we going to celebrate that? And just asking that question and figuring out whether or not we're going to be a match is the bidirectional win-win that we look for in a cultural exchange. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that's very unique to third stage, is we are very intentional about matching up that relationship. We don't just throw people on a project because you need a warm body there. That's actually the opposite of what we do. We spend a lot of time and conversation and getting to know our clients and giving them our best match, because that's the way that we produce value and are successful. So I think that's really well said, Greg. I want to shift gears in our last couple minutes here, just to talk about kind of where the industry is heading and where Third Stage is heading, some future views. We recently did a profile on our Ground Control podcast about how many companies will go through a digital transformation. We looked at some research and studies, and it said that in the next 3 years, over 80% of companies will go through some sort of technology transition or digital transformation to become a more digital-based workplace. And we could be talking about work from home. We could be talking about an e-commerce platform. We could be talking about the integrations, Greg, that you were mentioning between systems and using that data as a platform to make better decisions as an organization. So, Eric, I want to hear from you first. In 2030, what will Third Stage be? Crystal ball time.
I was expecting to go down the trends, the overall industry trends
I know.
route. So
I like,
wasn't
you know
ready for
me.
that.
I like to just, I
Total
like to keep it
curveball there.
fresh.
Jump
Knee
right to
jerk.
2030.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because that's a lot of what we're focused on now strategically as an organization is how do we continue to grow internationally, to kind of take full advantage of our brand recognition and just the demand for our services in the marketplace. And that's been the hardest thing for us, which is a good problem to have, is been really just keeping up with demand and a lot of our marketing initiatives and thought leadership initiatives have really taken off and delivered a lot more demand for our services than I would have anticipated by this point in our journey. So I think this continued sustained growth is really important. Also, really just being true to who we are as an organization, maintaining that culture, preserving that culture, but also just taking more advantage of the opportunities in the marketplace is probably the biggest thing. I couldn't give you any quantitative metrics around how big I think we'll be or, what our revenue will be in 2030. But at this point, that aggressive growth is a big part of what our plans are. So we're, constantly looking at ways to fuel that growth.
Absolutely. And that aggressive growth, not only on the Third Stage side, but also on the technology evolution side. So, Greg, what are some things that you're seeing in the marketplace as far as where digital transformation will be in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think that all the way along, there have been two types of digital transformation. One is digital transformation with a capital T, as I like to call it. And that's moving to a whole new technology platform for a variety of reasons, because your current systems are becoming obsolete and being decommissioned in a couple of years. And so in advance of that, you're looking at replacement, right? There's also optimization and keeping a lot of the systems that you're currently running and bringing that together. So I think that in the future, the industry is moving toward that lowercase t transformation, which really involves bringing together those different systems in an interoperable manner. And I think staying true to the Third Stage independence and agnostic approach is going to help us grow as a company and grow within the demand area of the marketplace in terms of being able to provide those holistic solutions for enterprise going forward. I think that's going to be the look of Third Stage in 2030, in answer to your question directly.
Well, that is a good look, if you ask me. Okay. Yeah, right. And speaking of that, those integrations, those using different systems in different areas, or just making sure that they talk and connect to each other. Eric, is traditional ERP dead?
You're baiting me, aren't you?
I really am. I have 5 minutes left to be disruptive for our brand. Right?
You're trying to disrupt the disruptors.
Yeah, right.
I think it could and should be dying, if that makes sense. In a way, I mean by that is I don't think ERP systems are going anywhere anytime soon, but I think there's a lot of cracks in the foundation that have been exposed over the last couple decades of trying to implement one-size-fits-all broad-based solutions in the name of wanting integration. I think a lot of companies have gone too far that direction of putting all their eggs in one basket of one big software solution that can't possibly be everything that you want it to be, especially for larger organizations. So I think there's just going to be, I don't know that it's dead, but to Greg's point earlier about interoperability and what used to be known as best of breed and just all these different point solutions, these really specific, focused industry niche solutions, there's just so many great technologies out there, and the barriers to entry are lower than ever as far as creating a software company or building a software. So I think it's really chipping away at the incumbent, the big ERP software vendors. I think their market share is going to continue to erode. I don't think it'll ever go to zero, or I don't expect SAP or Oracle to fail anytime soon as organizations. But I think those big ERP solutions definitely have weaknesses, and they're not the right answer for all organizations. Would be my politically correct answer, I suppose.
Greg has made you so politically correct. I don't even know if I support this transition.
No one can make me too politically correct.
I know. Well, we all know.
I'm trying to temper it.
All he can do is temper it. He can't get rid of it.
That's a good shift, definitely. So going to you, Greg, you touched on like Palantir, some additional smaller pieces of technology that might not be core ERP, but are very, very important to ensuring that you maximize the value of your technology. So what are some other maybe digital adoption platforms, integration platforms, some additional vendors in the marketplace that haven't been that core group of looking at an N4, SAP, Oracle, Epicor, those types of bigger kind of titans in the industry? What are some other things that you've seen from the systems side?
Well, I think that, for one thing, I'm not in the camp that says ERP is dead. I'm in the camp that says ERP is an important core part of everything that is going forward in terms of digital operations. Maybe we should think about the evolution as evolving from ERP, enterprise resource planning, to digital enterprise operations, DEO. Hopefully I'm coining a new term, right?
Yeah.
But as we move to that, really it really is the kind of the genesis of the new platform era. So you're going to see people like Azure, like AWS, like several of our single privately hosted solutions through Estes and Navisite, and certainly Palantir is kind of the connecting piece for those different and disparate technologies. That's where I see the platforms actually taking over for a single threaded ERP system and making it digital enterprise operations going forward. So that's what I see as kind of the elevation and evolution of the marketplace.
Yeah, that's a really wise observation. Definitely. I think that makes a lot of sense. In our last couple minutes here, and then we have to let Greg and Eric go back to their day jobs. But I want to hear from both of you of what you're most proud of, what this win means to you the most when it comes to being involved in Third Stage. So I'll go to you first, Greg, and then we'll kind of round out final thoughts with you, Eric.
Really recognition by Inc. in a way that is just completely unfiltered and certainly not acquired. It's earned. It's testimony to, we are finding the right place in the marketplace, that we are finding the right place in the community. And it's great recognition of that growth trajectory as a vote to say we're moving in the right direction and our people are definitely following the right path.
Good. Very well said. What about you, Eric?
Well, I think for me, it's the team we've built. I mean, it's a really strong team, and I have never worked around this caliber of people before. And not only, back to the cultural discussion or thread before, not only do I feel extremely comfortable getting stuck in an airport bar with any one or all of the people on our team, but they're just really, they're just good people. They're good at what they do, and we've got a strong culture, and I'm really happy with the team we've built. The other thing too is just the impact that we're having on clients. I mean, it's really cool to see some of the projects we do. I mean, I learned so much. I love consulting in general, so that's all I've ever done. This is all I know is consulting, right? digital transformations and ERP implementations. That's my whole career has been doing that. So it's all I really know, and I love doing it. But what we've done here is just so different as far as the impact we have on some really cool industries and niches that I didn't even know existed until we got these companies as clients. And, a lot of them are really big multinational companies too. And just being able to have an impact, a material, noticeable impact on some of the world's leading and largest companies is super cool. So it's really rewarding from that perspective as well.
Yes, I think Third Stage is so mission driven and wanting to provide that value on the business side for our clients. It's what we're all passionate about. That's the reason, we spend so much energy and intention on providing the most valuable recommendations that we can. So thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations again for this very prestigious placement on this list. Just a reminder to our audience, this will go into some of our podcasts. So head over to our website. You can see our whole thought leadership tab. You can follow us on YouTube and then listen and subscribe to our podcast that we do weekly as well. We also do a live stream with Eric every Tuesday. So come back, join those. And you can schedule them. But thank you so much for your time, and have a great weekend. If it's not already the weekend, where you are. Thanks,
thank you,
everyone.